Should have made it yesterday, but it's still fun and it looks great. So hi everyone, thanks for joining us. Here's Louise from C&L Farmgate. I am getting ready to make my sourdough bread. So I've got my nice, active, healthy looking leaven, which I made yesterday. So it basically rose overnight and she is ready to go. So for the sourdough bread, there's a few different recipes out there. Some call for a scale for you to weigh. I don't weigh it, basically just winging it. I got this recipe from Wild Oaks Farms and it has worked amazing anytime I've used it. So first we're gonna start with a glass or a plastic mixing bowl. I like the glass because it's cool. You can always see the fermentation that's happening inside and all the bubbles. So we're gonna get some warm water. I like it a little bit hotter than the lukewarm. It just helps everything move a little bit quicker. So I should have maybe preheated my water. Just gonna wait here. So with water, so you're gonna use 2 1/4 cups of water, maybe like half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of salt. Oh, grab the wrong one. So maybe a quarter or a teaspoon of salt. We use kosher salt just because I have thyroid issues and kosher salt is better. So water is ready. So 1, 2, and a quarter. Gonna add my salt. Okay, once that's added, you can mix it up so that it dissolves in the water. And then we're gonna add our leaven. So to know that your sourdough bread or your leaven is good, it needs to float. Whoa. It needs to float inside your mixture of salt and water. So if it floats, it's good to go. If it doesn't float, you're not making sourdough bread. And as you can see, it's floating. I've only ever had it where once I couldn't use my leaven. So, put that in there. Okay, and once it reaches this point and you added your leaven to it, you can also add a bit of olive oil. This is grapeseed oil just because I'm out of olive oil, but it'll be fine. So just a bit of that. No exact measurements. I just kind of put it in there and mix it up. So I mix it up because I find it incorporates a little bit better in the flour. You don't have to mix it up. I won't mix it up until it's completely dissolved, but at this stage here right now where there's a couple lumps and glumps, lots of bubbles, this is kind of where I'm gonna leave it. Our flour now. So this recipe, again, you don't have to weigh anything, calls for 5 cups of flour. So just use, you can use all-purpose flour, all-purpose flour. I find I like to use 3 cups all-purpose flour and 2 cups of bread flour works well. So 1, 2, 3, and move this big bag of bread flour over. 4, and 5. Okay, so once it's all added in here, we're just gonna mix it up. When you first mix it up, it's It's gonna be less smooth, more like tacky and sticky and like chunky, kind of. So mix it all up. So I usually start with a spoon or like a spatula or something, and then once it's pretty well mixed, I'll get in there with my hands and just make sure that all the flour gets added in. And then I'll just kind of work all that loose flour into the dough. The nice thing about sourdough is that you really don't have to knead it. So you're just kind of mixing it. So it's just kind of a little rough looking right now, but that's how we're gonna leave it. And so you put a piece of saran wrap or I don't know what else that's called, plastic wrap over top. And I'm just gonna let it sit like that for half an hour, and then I will come back in half an hour and show you what we do next. Okay, so it's been about half an hour, and now we're gonna stretch and fold. This is what builds the gluten in the dough. So you literally just have to stretch, fold it over, and you do that for each side of the dough. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you come back in half an hour and do that. And I like to do it about 4 to 5 times, half an hour apart. So our sourdough bread is out of the fridge. I actually forgot about it for a couple days, so it is a little overdue, but still good. So as you can see all those healthy bubbles in there. Look at that, which is just awesome. So I'm going to gently peel it off of this plastic wrap. I never get all of it off, but I mean, try to get as much as you can. Okay, so what's important about sourdough is that you don't want to ever punch the air out. You want to make sure that you're keeping those air bubbles inside of the bread. So I just have some all-purpose flour here. I'm just going to put some down on my countertop. And now we're going to empty this bread onto it. And I'm just basically scraping it away from the edges. So the other thing I'll note is, so if you want a quick rise on your sourdough bread, you can set it out at room temperature. Like I said, because I forgot about mine, the day that I made it, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get it baked that day. I had a bit of a busier day than I had expected, so I put it in the fridge. So in the fridge, it has a slower rise, which actually buys you a bit of time. So if ever you mix your dough and you're like, oh man, I really don't have time to bake it today, just pop it in your fridge. It'll be fine. It's just going to rise a little bit slower. So we are now going to cut this in half. Forgot about that. So it doesn't have to be super, super equal, but just basically halfway through the loaf, you're just going to slice her out. Okay, set one aside. Again, not punching the air out of it. So at this point, we want to just work the flour. We want to stretch and fold a little bit more. And after our stretch and fold, we're going to let it rise again for another hour. So stretching it. Stretching it. It's still a little cool. I probably could have let it sit out at room temperature a little bit longer before I started working it. but I've got some other things to do here today. So at this point, as you can see, I stretched it all and I met each point back into the middle and then flipped it over, and that makes a nice little boule for you. Okay? Now I'm just stretching and folding some more, so kind of pulling it back, tucking underneath. Like I said, you don't want to like punch it down, so you'll see some air bubbles forming at the top, which is perfectly fine. That's what gives you your big bubbles in your bread. And that's basically what it's going to look like. So it's nothing super fancy. You don't have to work it for very long. Just like this, and then you put it in your basket. Let me grab one. So I only have one Banneton basket. I had an oval one, but I really didn't find it did nice bread. It always stuck and it just flattened out. So I do prefer these round Banneton baskets better, and I am going to get another one. When you're putting your loaf inside the Banneton basket, you want to flip it upside down so that the areas that you pinch together are actually at the top. There you go. And then just put a piece of plastic wrap over top again. And then that's going to sit out at room temperature. Usually, if the dough is already at room temperature, I do about an hour. So it kind of just doubles in size a bit. But I think since I took it out of the fridge and the dough is still cool, I'm going to probably give it an hour and a half before I flip it over and get it ready to bake. So I'm just going to set this aside. We're going to work on our second loaf. So this always makes 2 loaves. And honestly, we go through it pretty quickly. So I mean, 2 loaves is not a big deal. I've also made some flavored loaves where about halfway through the process of stretching and folding at the beginning that I would incorporate something. So I've incorporated cheese, cinnamon, and raisin on another loaf. You could do jalapeno and cheese. You could do olives and cheese. Anything like that's just really good. A bit more flour on my hands here. So you're basically just using the counter to pull on the boule. And that's it. So second loaf is ready to set aside to rise, and then I will come back when it's time to bake. So we're almost ready, and I'm going to flip this one over onto a parchment paper. This one's going to go in, so it's nice and risen. So we are back. Our sourdough is nicely risen. I left it a little bit longer. It's kind of how I roll lately. I'm too busy and I've got 50,000 things to do. So basically, the one in the Banneton basket, we're just going to cover with wax paper, flip her over. Oh, she's stuck a little. Okay, I'll show you what that looks like. So that is our finished loaf right here. And then what I like to do, is kind of just shape it a little bit better. So I'm going to get a bit more flour on my hand. Put that in there. And then we're going to give it a little bit more of a shape. There you go. So that one's ready. And then, so I have one of these blades that I got off of Amazon. I just like doing a slit along the edge here, keeping your blade kind of straight so that when it rises you get a really nice ear to it. Okay. I'm not too good at the design, but this Banneton basket puts a nice design on it already, so we're going to leave it like that, and then I'll just grab the other loaf and we'll do the same. So we have the other loaf here. Oops. Also a little sticky, so we're going to throw some flour from our basket on here. Need a little bit more, still a little flour. Okay, and then we're going to do the same with our blade. Cut across. I need to change my blade. It's a little sticky. Okay, so now that that's done, we're gonna put it in our baking dish. So depending on what you prefer, I've used a Dutch oven, but I find that this turkey roasting pan or like a chicken roasting pan works a lot better. It gives it a nice browning and cooks it really well. So both loaves are in there. Okay, and they are going to go into the oven. The oven is set at 425, and you want to set it so that you're cooking with the lid on for 20 minutes, and then take the lid off after 20 minutes and keep cooking for another 20 minutes. So I will show you what it looks like after 20 minutes. So it is looking fabulous. You see that ear right there where the bread has split open? Oh, they look good.